G'day guys, how you going? It's me again. Tonight I'm going to be doing a review. Hope you're all doing very well. This review is going to be a Mexican horror film. It's spoken in Spanish, English subtitles. It was made in 2010, directed by Jorge Miguel Grau, and this movie is called We Are What We Are. And the story is as follows. A middle-aged man dies in the street, leaving his widow and 3 children destitute. The devastated family is confronted not only with their loss but also a terrible challenge: how to survive. As their chosen lifestyle unfolds, we quickly learn their gruesome secret. They have always existed on a diet of human flesh consumed in bloody rituals. Now their hunter is gone, who will replace him? Who will lead them? How will they satisfy their horrific hunger? So we have the start of the film. This really old, grubby man, really dirty man, dies in the street. And we quickly realise that this man was the father of a family and husband of a wife. And this family are poor and they have a terrible secret. They rely on human flesh. So they're a family of cannibals. And this man who has just died was the sole provider for their food. So he was the hunter, and he was very much the leader, and he directed this family around. So without their leader, they're worried, and they have no more food supply. So now one of the teenage boys, there's two teenage boys, a teenage girl, and the wife. One of the teenage boys has to now become the leader, and it is pretty much a power struggle. One of the teenage boys is very violent, and he's not a candidate. He's not an ideal candidate to take over. And then you've got the other boy who is much more mild, but doesn't have the courage to step up because he's afraid of a lot of things in life. So the teenage girl is pretty much the strongest one out of the whole family. The wife is constantly saying they're doomed. She's got a very negative view on the world now that her husband is dead, so she's very, very worried. So it's really the teenage girl who is taking control, but she knows that she can't take lead. It has to be a male. So the one that she is nominating to take over, and he's reluctant to do it because, as I said, he's afraid of a lot of things in life. He's very insecure, so he's not the ideal candidate. But as I said, the other teenage boy is very violent, so he's very much a liability. So whether or not this guy likes it, he has to take over, and what unfolds from here is a power struggle, and the family have to come to terms with their loss, and at the same time have to try and carry on life as normal as possible. Otherwise, it'll be the very destruction of the family. So that's as far as I'm going to go with the story. If you want to know more, then I'll highly suggest you go out and see the film for yourself. Hopefully the synopsis has left enough of interest for you to go out and see it. I'm not going to give any spoilers. It is a fairly well-known foreign horror film, so it shouldn't be too hard to get yourself a copy. So if you want to know more, then please go and watch the film for yourself. Now, my thoughts on the film. A lot of good things have been said about it. It's said to be a startling and macabre, a very memorable film. Grimly funny and at times horribly effective. Equally excellent. So, a lot of praise has been heaped upon this film, and it's also said that it does for cannibals what Let the Right One In did for vampires. So that's a big statement in itself, and it's one that brought a lot of expectation to the table for me. So I had high expectations coming into it. Mexican horror, well, Mexican cinema in general is not very well known for me. I know that Guillermo del Toro is Mexican in himself, but I am not aware of Mexican cinema, and this is the first real film from there that I have been exposed to. So I didn't know exactly what to expect, but the write-ups that this film had received, I had an expectation level that this was going to be good. And don't get me wrong, it was a good film. It was very solidly acted, and I have to disagree with a lot of critics that said the acting was kind of off. I actually enjoyed the acting. I thought they did a good job. It wasn't great, but at the same time it wasn't bad. The direction was very good. Cinematography, the way it was shot, was excellent. The soundtrack really matched the mood to the entire film. And I thought the overall plot and the storyline was very good. And it hasn't been done before, well, not that I'm aware of. So it provided something original. It was about a family of cannibals, but it doubles about a film of a family coping with loss and the effects that a loss has on us, and how sometimes as teenagers we're forced to become adults very quickly because we're a victim of circumstances. So it's pretty much having to grow up in a very short space of time. So it's not just a cannibal film, it does double as other films, so it does have some layers to it. So I actually liked a lot about this film. But what I didn't like was the fact, to say that it does for cannibals what Let the Right One does for vampires is misleading, because this had nowhere near the emotional impact as Let the Right One In. And I say that because Let the Right One In had very good character development, and you could have a sense of strong sympathy for the characters. However, in this film, I thought it was very shallow. I thought the director didn't spend enough time going into the character development. So whether or not this film should have been a bit longer, I don't know, but it really should have just dove into the character development, because at the end of the day, it did have impact, but it would have had even more impact if I actually cared what happened. Now, I don't know why they couldn't live on normal food, but for some reason they had to rely on human flesh. Whether or not I just missed it, I don't know, but it didn't go into details. There were a few sort of subplots there that could have gone in and explored it even more, but unfortunately the director never goes and explores it. So at the end of the day, it was a very, very shallow film. And I think that the emotional impact that the director wanted to have in the film was let go, because there wasn't enough detail in the film, and therefore, Let the Right One In was a much better film. It provided much more of an emotional impact. This film, the characters were cardboard cutouts. We didn't know where they came from. All we knew was that the father died, and I'm not going to go into reasons why he died. It's something you're going to have to watch to see for yourself. They weren't overly likable. I think the director really painted the family as villains rather than victim of circumstances. They don't necessarily like being cannibals, but it's something that they've grown up being, so it's not something they can control. And I think it would have been better if the director really painted these people as unfortunate rather than evil. So to paint them as evil really does, it lets go once again the emotional impact. So a very, very good film, but I felt that, to be compared to Let the Right One In, it needed to be another step above what it was. So it's definitely a film that you will get a lot of enjoyment out of. I actually enjoyed this film. It's not a bad film at all. But to compare it to Let the Right One In, I thought that was a little bit unfair and misleading, because as soon as you read that tagline, does for cannibals what, Let the Right One In does for vampires, your expectation levels are going to be very high, especially, if you consider Let the Right One In as a masterpiece, as I do, you're going to have high expectations that this one has been labelled in the same sentence as that film, and those expectations aren't going to be met because, it just doesn't have the emotional impact. It's a shallow film. The director really skims across the concept of the whole film, and doesn't go into depth, and doesn't really give you character development. So at the end of the day, very good film, but it could have been a lot more had the director paid more attention to the actual characters. So that's my review of We Are What We Are. Certainly not a bad film, and certainly a film I would say go out there and buy, especially if you want something from the central sort of America Spanish area. And yeah, it's a welcome addition to the cannibal genre, but yeah, just be careful. All the write-ups, it's a little bit misleading. I think it's a little bit overrated, but still a decent film nonetheless. Alright guys, that's my review of We Are What We Are, a Mexican horror film. I hope you enjoyed it, and until next time, take care of yourselves, and I'll see you later.